Nobody expected that night to end the way it did. Just minutes before everything went wrong, Cardi B was exactly where she always thrives, on stage, in control, owning every second. The lights were blazing, the crowd was roaring, and the energy felt unstoppable. It was one of those moments where everything clicks perfectly, where nothing seems like it could possibly go wrong. Until it did. Because what happened next wasn't part of the performance. It wasn't planned, it wasn't subtle, and it definitely wasn't something anyone in that building was prepared for. According to multiple people backstage, the shift happened almost instantly. The second she stepped off stage, something felt different. At first it was small, so small most people didn't even register it. A pause, a slight change in posture, a look that didn't match the confidence she had just shown seconds earlier. But then that moment stretched. And within seconds, everything escalated. Because without warning backstage, away from the crowd but not from the people closest to her, Cardi reportedly collapsed. Not a stumble, not a moment of dizziness you can shake off. A full collapse. The kind that freezes a room. The kind that immediately tells everyone, this is serious. 1 second there's noise, movement, post-show energy, and the next everything drops. Conversations stop mid-sentence. People rush forward, someone shouts, someone else calls for help. And just like that, calm turns into chaos. Crew members moved fast, trying to figure out what was happening in real time. Some tried to clear space. Others were already reaching for medical assistance. Because in moments like that, there's no time to think, you just react. But what really shook people wasn't just the collapse itself. It was what happened seconds after. Because as the situation unfolded, Offset rushed in. And according to witnesses, what they saw from him wasn't the version people are used to. Not the public persona, not the composed, camera-ready presence. This was different. This was raw. Insiders say he didn't just look concerned, he panicked. Completely. The kind of panic that doesn't come from confusion but from fear, real fear. There are even claims that he broke down right there in the moment, not holding back, not trying to stay composed, just reacting. And that reaction is what has people talking now. Because when someone responds like that, it suggests something deeper. It suggests this wasn't just a random, minor incident. It felt bigger, more serious. The kind of moment that hits harder because it wasn't entirely unexpected. And that's where the story takes another turn. Because now, whispers are starting to surface that this didn't come completely out of nowhere. According to some accounts, there were signs earlier that night. Small ones. Easy to miss. But signs nonetheless. People are saying her energy backstage before the performance wasn't exactly the same. That there were moments where she seemed slightly off. Nothing dramatic enough to stop the show, but enough, in hindsight, to raise questions. And that's what's making this situation even more intense. Because now people aren't just asking what happened. They're asking if it could have been prevented. To really understand why this moment is hitting so hard, you have to look beyond just that night. Because this isn't just about a performance gone wrong. It's about everything that led up to it. The pressure, the pace, the lifestyle. Because being at Cardi's level isn't just demanding, it's relentless. Constant travel, back-to-back appearances, studio sessions, public expectations. There's barely any space to slow down, let alone stop. And over the past few months, there have been quiet hints that the pressure might have been catching up. Nothing official, nothing confirmed. But enough for people to notice. Moments where she seemed more tired than usual. Interviews where her energy felt slightly lower. Comments, half jokes at the time, about pushing herself too hard and not getting enough rest. Back then, people brushed it off. Now those same moments feel different. Now they feel like warning signs. And this is where Offset's role becomes even more important. because according to people close to them, he wasn't blind to any of this. In fact, some say he had been noticing the signs for a while. The exhaustion, the pressure, the moments where she needed to slow down. And allegedly, he had been telling her exactly that. To rest, to take a break, to ease up before things went too far. But if there's one thing people know about Cardi, it's that slowing down isn't in her nature. Not when there's work to do, not when there are expectations to meet, not when millions of eyes are watching. And that creates a difficult dynamic. One person pushing forward, refusing to stop. The other watching, concerned, knowing something might go wrong, but unable to fully prevent it. That kind of tension doesn't explode overnight. It builds, quietly, though, over time. And according to insiders, that's exactly what had been happening. There are even rumors that the night of the performance itself wasn't as straightforward as it seemed. Some sources claim there were last-minute discussions about whether she should go on stage at all. Others suggest she had considered canceling. Nothing confirmed, but enough to make people question everything. Because if that's true, if there were doubts before the show even started, then what happened backstage wasn't just a random incident. It was the moment everything caught up at once. The pressure, the exhaustion, the warning signs, all colliding in one instant. And now, the biggest question isn't just what happened in that moment. It's what happens next. Because if this situation really is as serious as it felt to the people who were there, then it might force changes. Real ones. The kind that go beyond one performance, one night, one scare. The kind that affect everything moving forward. And right now, with no clear answers, no full explanation, and only pieces of the story coming out bit by bit, people are left watching, waiting, trying to understand what this moment actually means. Because one thing is certain. This wasn't just another night. And whatever really happened backstage, it may have changed more than anyone realizes. What happened backstage wasn't random. That's the part that's starting to settle in, and it's making everything feel heavier. Because when you piece it all together, it starts to look less like a sudden incident, and more like something that had been building all night. Maybe even longer. And if that's true, then Offset's reaction suddenly makes a lot more sense. Because imagine this, you've already been worried. You've already noticed the signs. You've already said something maybe more than once. And then, right in front of you, the exact thing you were afraid of actually happens. That's not just shocking. That's devastating. And according to people who were there, the moment he saw Cardi B go down, everything changed instantly. The calm gone. The structure gone. Whatever sense of control was left in that room disappeared in seconds. Because what started as a normal post-performance moment turned into chaos almost immediately. Multiple insiders are saying that when Cardi stepped off stage, something already seemed off. Not dramatic enough to stop everything, but noticeable. Her pace slowed. Her steps weren't as steady. Her energy didn't match what people had just seen under the lights. Someone reportedly asked if she was okay. And before she could even answer properly, it happened. Her body gave out. No warning. No time to catch her. 1 second she was standing, and the next she was on the ground. That's when everything broke. Crew members rushed in from every direction. Voices overlapped. Someone shouted for medical help. Another person tried to clear space. And for a few seconds, nobody had a clear plan because nobody expected this to happen. But then Offset saw it. And the moment he did, the tone of everything shifted again. Because instead of holding back, instead of letting the team handle it from a distance, he pushed straight through the crowd, ignored instructions, called her name again and again. Witnesses say his voice didn't sound controlled. It sounded urgent, panicked, real. He dropped down right next to her, trying to get her attention. Cardi, look at me. But something wasn't right. She wasn't responding the way people expected. And that's when the situation crossed a line, from scary to serious. Because now, this didn't feel like a simple feint. This felt different, more intense, more unpredictable. Even the medical team picked up on it. Their movements became faster, more focused. There was no hesitation anymore, just immediate action. And then came the moment people can't stop talking about. Because while medics were working, while the situation was still unfolding, Offset reportedly broke down. Not quietly, not subtly, fully, tears shaking, completely overwhelmed. And that moment hit people hard, not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. There were no cameras meant to capture it, no performance behind it, just raw emotion in a moment that no one could control. But just when people thought they understood what happened, a new detail surfaced, and it changed everything. According to an anonymous crew member, there may have been a warning earlier that night. A small one, easy to overlook. They claimed that before the performance even started, Cardi had mentioned she wasn't feeling 100%. Not seriously sick. Just off. Lightheaded, a little weak. The kind of thing people sometimes push through without thinking twice. And here's the part that's raising questions. The show still went on. Now nothing about that has been officially confirmed. But if it's true, then this situation becomes something else entirely. Because now it's not just about what happened. It's about what could have been prevented. Why wasn't the show delayed? Why wasn't she pulled back? Who made that decision? And did anyone underestimate how serious it could become? Those questions started spreading fast, and the internet did what it always does. People started digging, looking for clues, rewatching footage. And that's when a fan-recorded clip started circulating. It's short, just a few seconds, but in it Cardi is performing, and if you look closely there's a moment where she pauses, just slightly, almost like she's catching herself. At the time, nobody noticed. Now it feels different. Now it feels like a sign. And once that clip started gaining attention, the conversation shifted again. People weren't just reacting emotionally anymore. They were analyzing, connecting dots, trying to figure out what really happened before everything fell apart. And then another layer surfaced. Rumors of a disagreement backstage. Right before the performance. Details unclear, nothing confirmed, but multiple sources hinting at the same thing, a quiet but tense exchange between Cardi and someone on her team. If that's true, it adds even more pressure to the situation. Because now you're not just dealing with physical strain, you're dealing with emotional stress on top of it. And when those two things collide, that's when things can spiral. Vast. And suddenly, the narrative changes again. This isn't just a health scare. It's a build-up. Pressure, exhaustion, expectations, decisions all stacking up until something finally gave. And that's what makes Offset's reaction hit even harder. Because if he knew, if he saw it coming, if he had already tried to step in, then watching it unfold like that, right in front of him, that's not just emotional. That's devastating on another level. But just when people thought they had a clearer picture, one more detail started circulating. Quiet at first, then louder. Whispers that there may have been something else involved that night. Something not fully understood yet. No clear explanation. No confirmation. Just enough uncertainty to keep the story moving. Because now the question is just what happened. It's what haven't we been told? And if there's one thing this situation has shown, it's that every time it feels like the full story is coming together, another piece appears. Another question. Another twist. And right now, it still feels like there's more beneath the surface. Just when the internet thought the story had already reached its peak, it took a turn nobody was prepared for. Because what started as a simple backstage health scare around Cardi B quickly evolved into something far more complicated, emotional, and unsettling. At this point, the footage wasn't just being replayed for entertainment anymore. It was being studied frame by frame, as if every second might hide an answer. And the more people looked, the more questions appeared. Because according to multiple anonymous sources claiming to be connected to the situation, the collapse backstage wasn't as sudden as it first appeared. There were signs, small ones, easy to miss in real time, but impossible to ignore in hindsight. Some say Cardi B had already been feeling off before she even stepped on stage. Not dramatically, not enough to alarm everyone, but enough that a few people around her noticed a shift, a slower energy, a quieter focus, moments where she seemed to be pushing through something internally rather than fully performing at her usual level. And behind all of that, there was reportedly tension backstage. Not chaos, not shouting, something worse in a way, controlled pressure. The kind of conversation where nobody raises their voice, but every word carries weight. Insiders claim there was a discussion about whether she should even perform that night, a discussion that didn't reach the public but may have played a major role in what followed. If that's true, then the decision wasn't as simple as go on stage or cancel. It was a moment of judgment, a call made under pressure, and that's exactly what has the internet divided right now. Because once Cardi stepped onto that stage, everything looked normal. In fact, it looked perfect. The energy was high, the crowd was locked in, and she was performing at the level fans expect from her, confident, loud, in control. But now people are going back and watching it differently. They're noticing tiny details, a brief pause, a moment where her movement slows slightly, a shift in expression that at the time nobody questioned. But now those seconds are being treated like warning signs. And then came the moment everything changed. As soon as she stepped off stage, multiple accounts describe a sudden drop in her condition. Not a slow fade, not exhaustion over time, something sharper, more immediate. Witnesses say she looked disoriented for a moment, like her body couldn't fully catch up with her momentum. And then she collapsed. That single moment sent everything into panic. Crew members rushed in. Voices were raised. Security moved fast. The backstage area, which seconds earlier had been controlled and organized, turned into confusion in an instant. People weren't just reacting, they were trying to understand what they were seeing. And then came Offset. According to people present, his reaction wasn't calm. It wasn't measured. It was instant, emotional, and overwhelming. He reportedly pushed through the crowd without hesitation, calling out to her repeatedly, trying to reach her before anyone else could. But what shocked witnesses the most wasn't just that he rushed in. It was how he reacted once he saw her. Because the moment he reached her, everything about him reportedly changed. The composure disappeared, the performer image vanished, and what was left was pure panic. People close to the scene describe him breaking down in real time, visibly shaken, unable to process what was happening in front of him. For someone used to performing under pressure, that moment showed something entirely different, fear without control. And that's what made the situation hit harder online. Because once clips and accounts of the aftermath started circulating, fans began connecting dots that weren't obvious at first. They started asking whether this was truly random, or whether it had been building quietly in the background for a long time. Then came another layer. A resurfaced backstage clip began spreading, allegedly showing Cardi B just moments before she went on stage. In it, she appears focused, but there's a brief moment, almost unnoticeable, where her posture shifts slightly. A hand to her side. A subtle pause, something that in real time wouldn't have raised concern. But now, it's being treated like evidence. And with that, speculation exploded. Some insiders claim this wasn't just exhaustion. Others suggest it could be stress-related, possibly worsened by pressure from scheduling, expectations, and non-stop performance demands. None of it has been confirmed, but the uncertainty is exactly what's fueling the conversation. Because in the absence of official answers, the internet fills in the gaps. Every clip gets replayed, every expression gets analyzed, every second gets reinterpreted. And through all of it, one detail keeps coming back into focus: Offset's reaction. People are now questioning whether he saw this coming, whether his panic was surprise or recognition, whether there were signs earlier that only someone close to her would notice. That question alone has shifted the entire narrative. Because suddenly this isn't just about a performance gone wrong, it's about everything leading up to it. The pressure, the schedule, the conversations behind the scenes that nobody recorded. And as more theories spread, one thing becomes clear. The silence from both Cardi B and Offset is only making the situation louder. No statements, no clarifications, no direct explanation of what happened backstage. Just silence. And in today's internet culture, silence doesn't end a story, it expands it. Now the conversation has split in two. Some believe it was simply a medical incident triggered by exhaustion or pressure. Others think it points to something deeper happening behind the scenes, something the public hasn't been told yet. But both sides agree on one thing: the moment changed everything. Because whether it was preventable or not, whether it was sudden or building for weeks, the result was the same: a collapse that stopped the show, stopped the crowd, and stopped everyone watching. And now all that's left is uncertainty. What really caused it? Was it purely physical, or was it the result of something much bigger happening behind closed doors? Until those answers come out, the story isn't ending. It's still unfolding. And just like that, the entire narrative fractured. What was once seen as a sudden backstage medical emergency around Cardi B quickly turned into something far more layered, far more debated, and far more uncomfortable for fans to process. Because now, it wasn't just about what happened in that moment. It was about what led up to it, and what might have been ignored along the way. At the center of it all, Offset. His reaction didn't just circulate online, it became its own storyline. Clips of him reacting backstage began spreading rapidly. Some were authentic, some exaggerated, some edited in ways that amplified emotion, but all of them pushed the same image: a man overwhelmed, completely overwhelmed. And that image hit differently for the public. Because Offset has never been framed as someone who easily breaks. He's usually seen composed, controlled, calculated in public. But what people were seeing now didn't match that image at all. This was raw emotion, panic, shock that didn't feel rehearsed or performative. And that's exactly why the internet latched onto it. People started replaying everything, trying to read meaning into every movement, every facial expression, every second of footage they could find. And slowly, the conversation shifted away from Cardi alone and toward Offset's awareness. Was he reacting like someone who had just been surprised, or someone who had been fearing this moment already? That question spread fast. Because once people started analyzing his reaction frame by frame, a new theory formed. This wasn't unexpected to him. Something about the way he moved, the urgency in his voice, the immediacy of his response, it didn't feel like confusion. It felt like recognition. And from there, speculation took over. Did he know she wasn't okay before she went on stage? Did he try to stop the performance from happening? Was there already tension behind the scenes that the public never saw? No one had answers, but everyone had opinions. And just as that conversation peaked, the industry stepped in. That's when the situation escalated again. Because once insiders, tour staff, and music industry voices began reacting publicly, the tone of the entire story changed. It stopped being just a celebrity incident and started sounding like a system-wide warning. One anonymous tour manager posted a comment that quickly gained traction. "This is exactly why artists need protection from their schedules." Another insider added, "People don't realize how often situations like this almost happen. This time, it didn't stop in time." No names, no direct references, but the implication was enough. And then came the post that truly shifted everything. A verified artist, someone familiar with high-pressure touring environments, posted a short message that instantly went viral. "Y'all calling it a moment, I'm calling it a warning." That one line reframed the entire conversation. Because now it wasn't just about Cardi B collapsing backstage. It wasn't even just about Offset's emotional reaction. It became about the industry itself. The pressure, the non-stop schedules, the expectation to perform at full capacity regardless of physical or mental condition, the unspoken rule that shows must go on even when the body is saying otherwise. And once that perspective entered the conversation, everything spread faster. Media outlets picked it up immediately. Headlines started shifting tone. Fans concerned after Cardi B backstage collapse. Offset's emotional reaction sparks debate. Was the incident preventable? Industry insiders weigh in. The framing changed the story entirely. Now it wasn't just entertainment news, it was discussion material, debate fuel, a cultural moment being dissected from every angle. But through all of it, one thing stood out more than anything else. Silence. No official explanation, no detailed statement, no clear timeline of what exactly happened backstage, just fragments of information, anonymous claims, and speculation filling every gap left behind. And that silence didn't calm things down. It intensified everything. Because when there are no answers, the internet doesn't wait, it builds its own. Theories multiplied. Some suggested exhaustion. Others pointed toward medical complications worsened by stress. A few even claimed there was backstage disagreement before the show that added pressure to an already fragile situation. Nothing confirmed, but everything discussed. And the more silence continued, the more convincing every theory started to feel. Then came a detail that pushed the story into even darker territory. Early the next morning, a small but rapidly spreading update surfaced online from someone claiming to be connected to venue staff. According to them, Cardi B wasn't just given quick treatment and stabilized backstage. She was rushed out immediately. Not slowly, not calmly, but urgently. And that detail alone changed how people interpreted the entire situation. Because urgency implies severity. And severity raises questions that no one had answered yet. But the most unsettling claim came after that. Multiple witnesses allegedly stated that Offset never left her side during the entire aftermath. From the moment she collapsed to the moment she was taken out, he stayed close, watching, pacing, visibly unable to detach himself from what was happening. And then came the line that spread faster than anything else. A witness claimed Offset said quietly, "They should have listened." 3 words, no explanation, no context, just that. And somehow, that made the situation heavier. Because now people weren't just asking what happened, they were asking what was ignored, what warnings were missed, what signs were there before the collapse that people didn't act on in time. Suddenly, earlier rumors started resurfacing with new meaning. The exhaustion talk, the subtle signs during performances, The backstage tension that was previously dismissed as normal pressure, all of it was being re-examined under a new lens. And with each layer that resurfaced, the question became louder. Was this preventable? But just when the conversation felt like it couldn't go further, another post appeared. This time from an account known for cryptic industry-related hints. No direct names, no confirmation, just a short message that immediately sent the internet into overdrive. This isn't just about last night. There's more coming, and when it drops, everything changes. That was it. No clarification, no follow-up. But it was enough. Because now the internet isn't just replaying what happened. It's waiting. Waiting for the next detail, the next clip, the next explanation, the next piece that might finally connect everything or make it even more complicated than it already is. And right now, one thing is certain. This story didn't end backstage. It started there. And here's what's making this situation even heavier right now. Cardi B and Offset still haven't said a single word about it. No explanation, no confirmation, no denial. Just silence.